about with those who cannot bleat.
Well, after the headache I got from reviewing the last show for this year's Aardmay, I'm glad to move on to something more relaxed and enjoyable, and something that I've actually had a lot of past personal experience with. To be honest though, I did consider whether or not it was worth reviewing this, since I technically already reviewed it by looking at the Shaun the Sheep movie last year, but like I said in the last episode, I am a sucker for due diligence, and this is Aardman's most popular and long-running TV series, so it's worth taking a look at. Oh, and for those who are curious, no, I am not reviewing Timmy Time, because then I would just be reviewing the same series again, only for a much younger audience. For those who are new to both Aardman and Aardmay, Shaun the Sheep got its debut in the 1995 Wallace and Gromit short, A Close Shave, being one of the major supporting characters and eventually helping to save the day. Now, while Shaun did only appear in this short for a while, he became an exceedingly popular character, getting tons of merchandise of him, and eventually he was given his own spin-off series, which first aired on CBBC in 2007, and became one of the most popular shows of the millennial CBBC generation. Heck, you ask anyone who was a child between 2000 and 2010 who watched CBBC what kind of shows they watched, and Shaun the Sheep is definitely going to be on there. In fact, just to give a bit of context to how popular Shaun the Sheep is, you can play as him in Super Mario Maker. No, I am not kidding. In fact, one of the other reasons I hesitated to review this show is because its fan base is so huge, it's hard to know where to start, especially since Shaun has sadly fallen in with the Elsagate crowd as of late, which is unfortunate, but to his credit, it's not really the show's fault that the character has been warped by a bunch of crazy people trying to exploit YouTube. So let's wind ourselves back and just start with the premise of the series. The titular character has now moved onto a farm with lots of other sheep, somewhere in the British Midlands, and is now voiced by Justin Fletcher, who viewers of the time would probably remember as being the star of the show Something Special, where he played Mr. Tumble and various other characters. A show that I am not familiar with, but one thing I do know is that the show was designed to appeal to children who had learning difficulties and communication issues. So the show involved a lot of mime, vaudeville, slapstick and body language, which might make you think, well, why was this guy hired for a voice role? He barely speaks in his own show, but that's actually the genius of hiring him, because while he may not speak, he does have to do a lot of pantomime-style verbalization, and that was a perfect choice for Shaun the Sheep, because that's what the show is about too. All the characters, the other sheep, Blitzer the dog, the farmer, and any other characters that show up, do not speak a single legible word. Instead, they all murmur and mumble incoherent phrases and sounds. While they partake in various small adventures on the farm with his flock and other animals that live on the farm, often which are very simple in concept but are made very wacky and silly through the way they progress. And being the episodes are just little over 5 minutes long, the typical Aardman TV running length, it means that the show is basically just a series of nice simple sketches that can be enjoyed by just about anyone, much like Morph was. Which it's great that Aardman always goes for the general pleasing sense with a lot of their films and TV shows, because they do it really well, and all the more fitting since the company is based out of Bristol, which if you've ever been there, you'll know that that really fits with the mood of the town. The series' main backbone though are its characters, who despite not being able to talk, have a great amount of personality and charm to them. There's Shaun himself, who is the leader of the flock, and while often acting as the voice of reason, he also has a knack for mischief and being a bit of a smart aleck. There's Blitzer the dog, who, like Shaun, acts as the voice of reason, but also likes to delve in more boisterous activities, but he's got a lot more on the line if he messes up, since he's always under the vigilant eye of the farmer, who is the main authority on the farm, but is rather absent-minded and sometimes childish too. Then there's the jerky pigs, the jealous cat, and the other members of the flock, who are all incredibly enjoyable and likeable. I think what makes this show so great is how they're able to do so much with so little, which is always a great skill that Aardman has, but anyone who's lived on a farm or has been to a farm knows that while it's not necessarily quiet, it's also mind-crushingly mundane and repetitive. But they've been able to make 5 series, several spin-offs, and 2 movies out of this concept. That's unbelievably impressive, especially since I'm having trouble putting my thoughts about this show into words. I can't even imagine how hard it must have been for the writers of this show, and yet they've kept us coming back time after time. Though to be fair, the catchy theme song by Vic Reeves never hurts in doing that.
He's Shaun the Sheep. He's Shaun the Sheep. He's Shaun the Sheep. He's Shaun the Sheep. He doesn't miss a trick or ever lose a beat. Perhaps one day.
The series was directed by the creator of Rex the Runt, Richard Gobblefunk, but unlike his last show, Shaun the Sheep was a much more down-to-earth and basic show compared to the outlandish and surreal humour of his past show, probably because Nick Park was very vigilant about how he wanted to treat his baby. But much like Rex the Runt, the series has a very laid-back and relaxed tone to it, which also worked very well, much like Rex's did. Although my comment on how the series takes simple concepts and makes them more outlandish through its execution is sort of the opposite with what Rex the Runt did, where it had outlandish concepts and did them in a very simple way, which I guess shows how two programs that could not be more different on the outside can be weirdly similar. Admittedly, I know that this review has been a bit directionless, but that's only because of how this show has so much great stuff in it. But also it's so remarkably simple that it's hard to know what to talk about first, middle and last. So really all I can say is go watch it yourself. It's on YouTube, iPlayer, Netflix. You find it all over the place. Though do be careful when looking on YouTube. Look for long enough and you'll find some stuff you'll regret. Trust me. But regardless of that, Shaun the Sheep has gone down in history as one of Aardman's biggest franchises, and ensures that they'll be good for cash for a long time, just as long as they don't shear it too closely.